The internet is a really busy place, and if you have DSL, your connection can get bogged down. That's why you need high-speed internet from Xfinity. It gives you more bandwidth, freeing you to enjoy movies, music, and social networking sites the way they were meant to be. Xfinity.
Good afternoon. I'm Rick Bishop, the chairman of our Government Affairs Committee, surrounded by our President Austin Burke and our Chamber President-elect Paula Rashawn McCary, and of course our guest of honor this afternoon. Out of a Government Affairs Committee meeting earlier this year, an announcement was made that Governor Corbett was going to be speaking in Scranton tonight at the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick's dinner. He said, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could ask him to come up a little earlier and have lunch here at the Chamber? And his staff has been wonderful. I want to thank you and them for making our arrangements so wonderful. And to have this wonderful turnout of Chamber members to welcome you to Scranton. Of course, the Governor is the 46th Governor of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and according to this morning's paper, the 16th Governor to speak at the Friendly Sons dinner, carrying on a long tradition that goes back through all of the recent governors. So we want to extend our welcome for that. And I see a lot of green ties and green shirts and green blouses here today. So it's a perfect day to be in Scranton with the sun shining. Governor Corbett, of course, recently elected, has a long degree, and I'll just mention some of the things that I think would be important for us to know about his career as it touches on Scranton. He has a long career in law enforcement. As you know, he was first the Assistant Attorney General, the Attorney of Western Pennsylvania, the U.S. Attorney for Western Pennsylvania. He then became the Acting Attorney General, succeeding a resident of Lackawanna County back in 1995, so there is a connection. Before that also, because he has a history in northeastern Pennsylvania, it's interesting to note that he was actually a school teacher in Pine Grove School District in Schuylkill County. And talking about a foggy area that's always rainy, the fog never lifts from Pine Grove unless you just get south of there. He also has a military background with the National Guard from 1971 to 1984, rising to the rank of captain in the United States Army National Guard. Also, as you know, elected twice to be the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 2004 and in 2008, and overwhelmingly elected to be our governor for this last election. So let's give a Scranton welcome to Goveneor Tom Corbett.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you for the kind comments. I just want everybody to make sure that I started out as a private and then worked my way up to captain. And back in a very different time in our lives, and I always look proudly upon our men and women who are in the reserves, in the Guard, and in active duty, and continue to serve and protect us. It's a very different time now than it was back in '71 when I first went in. So I'm very proud to say that I'm now actually, when they're on state service, they're commanding officer. And I take it with great pride every time I see one of their vehicles go by me. And we had many people call after the budget speech and ask what the pin was that I had on my lapel. Here today, you see, I usually wear the flag of both the United States and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But on that day, in honor of the 28th Infantry Division, of which I was a member, I was wearing the Keystone, the red Keystone. Many of you have seen out there. I wear it very proudly. And it's always a great deal. It means a great deal for me to come back to Scranton in the Wilkes-Barre area. Throughout last year, I came here a number of times on the campaign trail. But for many years before that, as Attorney General, we came through here more often than not, announcing arrests of people, trying to help clean up one side of a problem that we all have across the entire country, and particularly across Pennsylvania. It's nice to come back to meet with you and have an opportunity to speak tonight to the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick. I've been to that dinner a number of times. I don't think there's any other place in the country you can get away with what they do there. And it's also nice to be able to go by and see the women at their party. My wife is going to attend their party, and although she's not Irish, I think everybody thinks she's Irish because she looks very Irish to me and to many people, and she will be coming up and joining me later today. Chamber of Commerce, so I guess we should talk business. And that's what you're here about, and that's exactly what I'm here to talk to you about for a few minutes and then answer some of your questions. As we all know, the last few years have been very difficult, not just here in Scranton, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country and really in many aspects across the world. We've been hit hard. We're at a very tough point in our history. You'd have to go back to the Depression to see a time financially that was worse than what we're going through now. But I do not believe, and I want to send this message, we're not at the end of our history. This is a period, this is the dip that we have to get ourselves out of. And there's a lot of people talking about the budget proposal that I put forward a week ago on Tuesday. First off, I want to remind everybody, particularly my friends in the media, this is a proposal. It was a proposal developed after a few months of taking a look at the problem and where we have to cut spending. This proposal started with the realization that we inherited from the prior administration and from the prior spending a $4.3 billion deficit. Now the teacher in me wishes I could open this up and just write 4.3 billion with all the zeros so that you can understand what we are looking at, because I think people lose sight of that. That's what I can't lose sight of. We've got to get our spending under control. Over the course of the last 8 years, we've increased our spending, state government, our budget, by 40%. And I dare say none of you in this room, in your businesses, in your occupations, in your homes, have increased your spending by 40%. Unless maybe you got drafted #1 in the NFL. We've increased our debt similarly during that period of time. And in the meantime, as you know, the economy went south. We continued to spend as the economy continued to go south. We have to deal with that fact, not that emotion, that fact from the very beginning. If we had the money, if we had the revenue coming in from what you do, from the jobs that you provide, the income that you provide to individuals through jobs, the revenue that we receive through sales, through income, would we be spending money? Yes. Not at the same rate. I can guarantee you I wouldn't be spending it at the same rate. We'd be much more responsible in our spending. It's clear to me when we sat down that we have no painless choices. We have difficult choices to make. None of them are painless. It's sort of like if you know, when you broke your arm or your leg, if any one of you did that. When they went to set it, it wasn't painless unless somebody gave you something to knock you out or to numb it. And the growth from that is not painless when it recovers. But if you don't do it, it's never going to grow straight. We're here on St. Patrick's Day. Confession, I had to steal the tie. I left my two in Pittsburgh when I was home for the weekend. I had to borrow this from Brian. And, you know, I wish I could sit down with each individual person, because I know people are very, very worried. Sit down, if this is St. Patrick's Day, have a beer, only one, and talk to them about what we're trying to get through here in the first year or two to get us back on the road to recovery. We're going to be all right. It's just not going to be painless. I could use another analogy, like that medicine. You take medicine, it always looks good. Has anybody tasted good tasting medicine? No. Because we've got some medicine to go through right now, and we will. That's what this budget is about. It's about the business cycle. I was reading a paper coming up here. I was reading a clips coming up here. Your unemployment still isn't where we want it, is it? We'd like to get it down. But it's starting to go. We're starting to see signs in the economy that we're growing out of this. And that's exactly what we have to do. We have to grow out of this. And I believe that we can do that. These economies, these problems wax and wane. We have to get through this. So how are we going to straighten things out? How are we going to grow? I don't think we grow by taxing more. And I know this is a question that many people have on their mind, inside this room, outside this room, around this county, around this region, around this state. Nobody should be surprised about my position of not taxing. Nobody should be surprised about my position about reducing taxes, unless they didn't watch any commercials last year during the campaign, didn't go on the internet and look at where my positions were. I am straight on with what I said we were going to do, is control our taxing. Because I don't think we grow by taxing. We don't grow your businesses by taxing you. We don't grow new businesses by creating more taxes. What we have to do is control our spending. The taxes send the wrong message. Some critics out there, not my critics, some critics say the answer to spending too much is to borrow more. We're already increased our borrowing by 40% in the last 8 years. 40% borrowing. And when we borrow, it's not our money we're borrowing. It's our children's money. It's our grandchildren's money. It's our great-grandchildren's money. It's our legacy to them. And I do not want to give them a legacy where $1 out of every 20 or $1 out of every 10 goes to pay off a debt for events that took place 10, 15, 20 years before that they had no say in. That's where we have a problem. Government does not create wealth. We agree with that? You're a Chamber of Commerce. I hope you agree with that, because if you don't agree with it, we all have a problem. Government does not create wealth. It taxes wealth. It taxes you, it taxes business. It does not create. And government does not create jobs other than more government jobs. You create the jobs. Free enterprise system. During the campaign, I talked about fiscal discipline, limited government, and free enterprise. And when I start acting upon that and making some proposals out there for the legislature to deal with, you hear people going, where did this come from? And I understand why they're saying that. But this is now the subject of the debate that's going on in Harrisburg and will go on until we sign a budget. Fiscal discipline, limited government, and free enterprise. The one thing I heard clearly last year, and I think that was demonstrated by the results of the election all across the state of Pennsylvania, not just in my race, but in many other races, and was demonstrated by the percentage points that I won by, is the people have one message: no more taxes. Get this under control. Sometimes I'm surprised that we have to remind people of that. You know, you don't have to remind a person who, when he walks down the street and steps on a rake, it comes up and hits him in the forehead, not to do that, do you? But sometimes we're going around and hitting them in the forehead, taxing them. And it doesn't hurt us as government because it's us, it's not them. We have to make sure that we understand that those taxes are a burden or do hurt when they become excessive. The short-term approach is curb the spending, get the spending under control. Then we grow our way out of this. So that's the long term, over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 years. If people don't agree with that, they're going to vote me out in 4 years. That's fine. If they agree with it, maybe they'll re-elect me. But I have to solve the problem of overspending, less revenues, now. There's an elephant in the room. It's the Marcellus Shale. Everybody says, why don't you tax the Marcellus Shale? How many of you would like to see a tax on Marcellus Shale? The teacher in me is going to come out. You guys, Steve, I know you want us to tax the Marcellus Shale. You don't have to raise your hand. But anybody else, how many of you would like to have us tax the Marcellus Shale? Okay, 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 good. I'm going to come back to that. You remind me when, because I'm going to get to the end of the speech. We're going to talk about it. First off, when we talk about the Marcellus Shale, I want you to think about this region up here. What it looked like 6 years ago before Marcellus started coming in, and what it looks like now. And take it all the way over. I first became interested in the Marcellus 2007, I believe it was, before I was running for re-election, when I was in Williams-Barre, and they started telling me about this gas. I didn't know anything about it, but I sat down and studied it. I had more people come and give me information. In fact, I became so interested in it that as Attorney General, when Lycoming County sent a group of people to Fort Worth, Tarrant County, I think is the county down there, to see what the shale gas was doing there, the plague was doing there. I said, can I send one of my deputies to tell me, come back to me? I wasn't running for governor, I wasn't even thinking about running for governor. But I wanted to know what the impact was going to be to the communities, from many different ways, including from the law enforcement way. What came back to me was this was an economic driver. This was jobs. This was income. This was revenue. This was problems. Every industry has a problem. So I started following a little more, and I started seeing that Lycoming County, the housing there, the hotels were growing. You've seen it here. But the one that really got me was when I went to a couple farms, and the farmers told me, I can now farm again. I can make it because the gas under my land, I've given a lease to a company, and I'm going to get a royalty. And I'm going to be able to go out and spend that royalty on new equipment that I couldn't buy. And that new equipment dealer is now able to stay in and employ the people that he has, because nobody was buying before. There's a Ford dealership, I believe, in Wilkes-Barre, down in Greene County, who the Marcellus Shale has kept that Ford dealership, I'm told, in business, because people down there are now starting to get income, that they're able to go out and buy trucks and buy cars. And it's like that rock in the middle of the pond. The ripples continue to start going further and further and further out. At the same time, what I was looking at, and what I am still looking at, is a very fragile economy where we're continuing to lose jobs. 2008, 2009, 2010. In other industries. And here we had a brand new industry coming in. Interesting. They're coming here. They're employing people here. I talked to one individual over in Tioga County, in Wilkes-Barre. He moved from Arkansas here. He created a company to build to level the ground and prepare the area of the acreage for a well, for his well site. He employed 100 people, Pennsylvanians. That's what he did. Those are 100 people that didn't have a job before. And that is replicated over and over and over again. My staff was talking to people. There's a company here, Laser Midstream. Tom Corbett is their chief. They're building a high-pressure gathering system for the gas. You got to get the gas after it comes out of the ground, and you have to move it. The guys who get it from point A to point B, that's what they are. They're based here. They're not based in New York, where there's a moratorium. They're not based in any other state. They're based here in Pennsylvania. That's important. It's in the middle of a $150 million pipeline and distribution network. He tells us we're hiring new people every day. By the end of this year, he expects to have 50 to 60 full-time employees. They have contracts with three major firms, and expect 2 more soon. You know, in his opinion, throwing a tax on the industry right now would have a negative effect. That's where I am. Any of you know what a KOZ is? How many of you know what a KOZ is? Okay. I want you to picture Let's go back to 2006. Let's assume a company came to the Scranton area and said, you know what? We're ready to invest $1 billion. We're ready to hire X number of people, 10, $15,000, 15,000 people in the region that'll give the ripple effect, the indirect effect to more jobs. All we're asking for is that you give us 10 years income tax, or 10 years tax-free. Is that what a KOZ is? Do you think you all would have said, yep, okay, good, look at the jobs. Yeah, we're going to do that. Do I think Governor Rendell would have done that? In a heartbeat. He would have done that. But they didn't ask for something free. They went in and hired people. They started growing an industry. The other thing I know is we are in competition with other states. We need the jobs now. We don't need the jobs 10, 15 years from now. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll be in another area, another low boom. But I have to deal with today. We need the jobs today. You need the jobs today. We need the job. We need the income from the revenue that those sales create, that those taxes create on the income taxes, corporate net income taxes that the companies pay. We do not want to lose them. Everybody says, oh, they're going to go anywhere. They're not going to go anywhere because the gas is there. Yes, it is. Guess what's not going anywhere? The gas. Gas isn't going anywhere. How many of you deal in capital every day? Put your hands up. Real high. Where are my bankers? Simple question. I think you can answer this yes or no. Is capital mobile?
Yes.
How mobile?
Very mobile.
Very mobile. And that is the message I heard repeatedly. Capital is mobile. And it takes capital to invest in this industry. Is equipment mobile?
Yes.
How many of you have seen the rigs? How many of you have been on a site? Steve, you been on a site?
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you.
not actually on the site, but up in the area.
We're going to get you on the site.
I'll be there.
I think it's very important. Because I've been on a number of them. I think everybody should go on, so we understand what we're talking about. Is the equipment mobile? Yes. Are we in competition with other states? Absolutely. We're in competition with Ohio. They've got some Marcellus. They also have the Utica, which you know is down below. There's so much equipment, so much capital, much more in the way of supply. I want to keep their jobs here. I want them to grow the jobs here. I want them to commit here. And they are committed. Some of the headquarters, I think, are starting here. Many headquarters have moved to southwestern Pennsylvania. It's the start of an industry. It's an industry that's going to be here for a very, very long time. Now, my staff is going to be mad at me because I just threw the speech right out the window. We need to grow this industry. It is a cornerstone, not the cornerstone, a cornerstone of the future. It's a cornerstone similar to heavy manufacturing, steel. It's a good idea. A potential cornerstone. Would we say, no, we don't want to have new manufacturing here? Not in your life, we wouldn't. I'll say, let's get it here. But we have one other side of this that I know that we need to take care of. And everybody thinks I don't. And that's the environmental side. How many of you are worried about the environment? Okay, we're all in agreement. Steve?
Yes, sir.
Just making sure. Now, we'll go back to the speech because there's a point here I want to make that my staff got me. Chris Borton. I don't know if any of you know Chris Borton. Has an engineering firm. Borton Lawson. He's hiring. He's out there hiring. An engineering firm here in Northeast. Good jobs? Probably. I would think so. Since the start of last year, he's added 35 new employees. His payroll is up to 150 people. engineers, surveyors, environmental scientists. And I want you to key in on the environmental scientists. Chris said that when some companies, some of the gas companies approached him about doing Marcellus shale work, he talked first with his employees. Did they want to take this on? The answer was yes, because they live here. They're going to live with the results of the industry. You all have lived with the results of prior industries. And I think that prior industry and the lack of environmental stewardship from 100 years ago is clearly evident. I drive by it every time I come up here. And my wife is from Pineborough. By the way, the fog's up a tree. Pinegrove's down at the bottom of it.
It's a clear.
Yeah, it's part of Pine Grove area. So I see that degradation. We're still trying to figure out what to do with the acid mine water. We're still working on that. So there's no industry in my mind that is going to continue on or get started here that doesn't have environmental stewardship. And my government has environmental stewardship to make sure that we protect our environment. It's a balancing issue. We will protect the environment. Now these people that work for Chris, they work here, they're going to have to live with results. So I think they're going to be watching out as they do the work on the environmental quality on behalf of these companies. They have good reason to be worried about it and to oversee it, to oversee it properly. To make sure that the groundwater is what it's supposed to be. To make sure our air is protected, our citizens are protected. And it's environmental scientists that have to do that. Chris put it this way to my staff. Who better to do that kind of work than the people who live here? I think it's a well-made point. Without the Marcellus work, this business, Chris said, would be in trouble. Instead, they're adding employees, professionals, people earning real money, people who deserve real money. And it comes from the private sector. Fiscal discipline, limited government, free enterprise. It does not come from the government. The government doesn't make you rich, doesn't give you wealth, doesn't give you comfort at home. We're growing a new industry to give jobs, thousands of them. I can go on and on with a number of other examples. So let me finish up with this. 2 points. Number 1 point, it seems people have forgotten my past when I became governor and made certain proposals. I tell you what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it. But my past, if you look at my record as Attorney General and my record as United States Attorney, I've enforced the environmental laws as fiercely as anybody has. As U.S. Attorney, we convicted a municipality in western Pennsylvania for polluting the Allegheny River and made them, on a civil case, build a whole new treatment plant because they were poisoning that river. Didn't exactly make me popular there either. But at least U.S. Attorney was an elected position. We changed the laws. I pushed for a law change as Attorney General to make the state water quality laws and penalties equal to the federal government so that we wouldn't lose cases to the federal government, that we could do it ourselves, and we have. So I want you all to know I'm committed, and my Secretary of Environmental Protection is committed to working on behalf of the people of Pennsylvania to protect the environment, but also to work with the companies to make sure, A, they do it right, and B, they're able to get the gas out. Now, let me address, so see, you were when there was 4 attacks, right? Okay. What was the number I said at the very beginning of our debt? Come on, sister. This is the first time I get to do this. I had 8 years and months. This is what's the turnaround. Substantial, okay. 4.3 billion. 4.3 billion. One of the reasons I believe that there was a call for severance tax right away is, but we have to fill a hole in the budget. We did not control our spending. We have to fill a hole in the budget. My goodness, The gas is ours. We ought to be able to tax it. Well, first off, the gas is only Pennsylvania's if it's on Pennsylvania's land. Under it. Individuals who have mineral rights, they own what's under them. We somehow forgotten about that. I'm getting too esoteric. I'm getting too much back into property law for the lawyer. Governor Rendell, when he first proposed this in September, or back in 2009, I believe it was, for the fiscal year 9-10, said it would raise $107 million. Where are my bankers? Would that cover the deficit?
No.
$107 million. The second year, and this is, he didn't get this tax, the first full year, it would raise $170 million. Now, I will tell you, I believe that most people out in the general public think that if we tax the Marcellus Shale, we solve our budget problem. My message to you is it doesn't solve the budget problem. Not by a long shot. And that should be an example of it. Last year, for 10-11, when he revamped this proposal would raise $178 million. 4.3 billion, 178 million. The facts are clear. It doesn't solve the problem. It's money. It can go somewhere. It doesn't solve the problem. But does it do something to the industry that we're competing with other states on? Does it make them look at, well, we're not going to spend any more money there. Maybe we'll just stay with what we have. And trust me, these companies aren't telling me everything they're going to do. I want them to come here. I want them to establish here. I'd like them to move their corporate headquarters here to Pennsylvania. The land that Pennsylvania has, first off, 132,000 acres have been leased by Governor Rendell. That 132,000 acres, in bonuses alone that the companies paid, brought in $413 million. That's a little bit better. Better than the tax did. We get between 16 and 18% royalties on the lands that are the Pennsylvania lands. In about 3 to 4 years, that's going to equal $250 million a year, just on the Pennsylvania lands. Now, keep in mind when I say that, this industry continues to pay to all their employees. The employees pay personal income tax. The industry, many of the companies pay corporate net income tax, and they pay other taxes like the sales tax, the fuel tax, and on down the line. So they are paying taxes. Everybody says, oh, they're not paying taxes. Yes, they are. Just like everybody else is. Does PNC pay any taxes in Pennsylvania?
100.
Okay. Maybe some other companies. I mean, you all, because you're here, right? These companies are here. They can't go without paying taxes. We can have a fight about that. But the reason I'm looking to the future, we're only talking about the Marcellus. We're not talking about the Utica that's 2,000 feet below. Is FBR Capital Markets has made a prediction. I don't know how good this is. I'm just telling you what I've read. That the Marcellus, over the course of its lifetime, is worth about, they believe, about $250 billion in activity for Pennsylvania. Directly. 250 billion. Is that an industry? Yeah. We're at the very, very beginning of it. That's why people are going to say, why don't you want to tax? Now I think you know why. If we had to make spending cuts, nobody likes spending cuts. President Spaniard's not real happy with it. I understand that. This is a starting point. I don't know what the final number is going to be, except for this. The final number of spending will not be above $27.3 billion, or I will not sign the budget. We have to get our spending under control. When you're doing a budget for PNC, how long do you prepare? How long does it take you to prepare to do the budget?
6 months.
6 months. In essence, we had 2. So if people are mad, yeah, they're going to be mad. I hope that they have the patience to see what's the final number, what the final statements are. But at the same time, I can tell you, everybody, because we're spending up here, we've got to say, we're going to see a budget that is not painless. But if we are to grow out, if we are to have this state recover and be strong for the future for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, we have to do it now. People in Pennsylvania elected me to do that. A lot of them are mad at me right now. I understand that. As I said, if I could sit down and have a beer with every one of them, I would. Wouldn't be good for my waistline or my brain space. So thank you all very much. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And I'm sorry for going so long. No questions?
Governor, usually I get the answer,
Oh, okay.
ask the first question. A year ago, you joined with the Attorney Generals in 27 other states to file a lawsuit against health care reform bill that was enacted by the Senate, the Congress, and signed by the President. I know you're not the Attorney General now. I know that you're following that case, but we haven't heard too much about that. I know that there's some judges that have felt that it was unconstitutional and others did not. But what was the thinking of the Attorney Generals, and now you're in a different position as Governor, about the federal health care reform bill?
Good question. I was Attorney General at the time, and there were 13 of us, which I thought was an ironic number, that filed the lawsuit. And it was basically this, boiled down to its simplest. Can the federal government tell you what you have to buy? It can tell you what you can't buy. We know that if you look at the drug laws. Just to start right there. We can tell you that you can't buy goods from Cuba or whatever. But they flipped it and said, you have to buy this. That's a philosophical position. That's an extension of the Commerce Clause beyond that which I believe is constitutional. And as Attorney General, I have had a role of protecting the Constitution of Pennsylvania and the Constitution of the United States. And I was an independent elected official. And so I filed that suit and joined the other 12 because I do not believe that they're allowed to do that. Do I believe health care needs to be fixed? Absolutely. Am I concerned about pre-existing conditions and the cost of health care? Absolutely. But I don't think you fix it by making people buy something. Now, I understand the financial reasons of why they put that in there. But the ends do not justify the means. You do not break the Constitution to get to that point. It became that simple. Other states have joined on, some by governors. I will tell you, as governor now, we have joined in that. I have joined in that lawsuit. I had our people join in that lawsuit. The status of it is, now that's the one in Florida. There's about 4 or 5 others. And as you know, lawyers can differ on whether it's sunny outside or cloudy outside right now, whether it's day or night, and they will argue both ways. And the judges will make the decisions and do the same thing. So it's working its way up to the appellate level at different circuits. Florida's in the 11th Circuit, Virginia's in the 4th. Those are true anti-healthcare legislation courts. Forget where the other ones are that say that the legislation is fine. It will get to the Supreme Court. I will tell you, many of us have asked the solicitor, have asked the Attorney General to agree with us and say, let's just knock off that intermediate level of the circuit courts and take this directly to the Supreme Court, because we all believe it will get to the Supreme Court one way or the other. We need to know, because we have to start the exchanges and everything like that for 2014. And as you know, the appellate process is a long process. We could shorten it by going directly to the Supreme Court. Pennsylvania, we probably could through the King's Bench. They could reach down and grab it. So we'll see what happens. So that's the status of it.
You got it. Any other questions? If you could just identify who you are so the governor has an idea. Way in the back, if you can't see, she's over there behind the TV camera.
Behind it. There you are.
So I have sort of...
Tell me who you are and where you're from.
Oh, sorry. My name is Michelle Dempsey. I'm an architect in the city, DXMC Architecture, so I'm from Scranton. So I have 2 questions, basically. One is, why are we trying to attract the gas companies? We have the gas, so doesn't that sort of naturally attract them? I don't see why we have to incentivize them in any way. And two, which is the bigger question, what is the accountability when something goes wrong? Because that's sort of where I see the severance tax is helping us. You know, if something should go awry, where's the accountability? You know, even in the financial crisis, where was the accountability at the end of the day? It landed on us, right? So
Okay,
where would the accountability?
Good questions. Number one, we don't have to track, because they're here because the gas is here. But with the price of gas and location, supply and demand, this is basic economics 101, there are other places that they have already drilled. It's in the pipeline. It comes up through here to go to one of the markets of the Northeast. And I didn't even get into the discussion of what markets we might be able to create, and that's a discussion for another day. The price will determine whether they continue to take it out of the ground here and put it into the system, or if the price, because the taxes goes too high, they take it where they've already drilled and they're putting it in because they have a lower price there. And the transportation, so they balance the difference between the transportation costs and the taxes of where they are. Which one is more conducive, which one gives them the better profit margin. And that's what, you know, they're in business, they're in it for a profit at the same time. I want to keep them here, I want to attract them here because they are employing a lot of people now, and they continue to employ. That's what I'm attracting them for and keeping them here. The second part is the severance tax. You thought it was going to go in case there was a problem. Actually, I didn't mention this. The severance tax, as I recall, was, as Governor Rendell proposed, was not going to go to the general fund. Remember those numbers I gave you? They weren't going to the general fund. They were going to, in essence, I believe, a growing greener 3. Don't hold me absolutely to that, but I believe that's the case. To help with environmental regulation. And there's a third area, and right now, I'm sorry, I don't have my notes, I'm forgetting. But it was not going to go to the general fund. Right now, those companies are major companies. They have insurance policies if they have a spill or something like that. DEP does regulate them. The prior administration, properly so, increased the cost of fees. And those fees those fees go for the hiring of more inspectors to make sure that they are doing it the proper way. Are there going to be bumps? Absolutely. Your industry, my son's an architect, was an architect. Yeah. There are bumps. We're dealing with the environment. That's why we need to be very vigilant of what they're doing. And my DEP is going to be doing it. We have to look at the whole insurance mechanism. The reason that I have asked Lieutenant Governor Cawley to head up a Marcellus Shale Commission is because I don't think that we've been doing what I want this commission to do for the last 4 years as this industry has been going on its own. We need a much more coordinated approach of how do we develop? How do we create the regulations? How do we make sure that the communities who are impacted, particularly in the roads and everything, are reimbursed? Because they need to be. They need to be done so properly.
Or if water is contaminated.
Or if water is contaminated. That's exactly right. From the contamination side, I will tell you with the drilling of it, if you're talking about water released, many of the drills now, from 4 years ago when they weren't recycling, they're going to recycling. As you know, it's a huge difference. That's going to cut that down. That reduces that problem considerably if they keep recycling. It's an industry that will adapt, and we need to help them adapt. We need to look prospectively. Government hasn't done that. And hopefully they're going to produce in 120 days some good results and good recommendations that the legislature can then act on. But we've really been sitting there doing nothing. I want to be proactive. Okay?
We have time just for one more question because the governor has a tight schedule, but we certainly
For
appreciate...
the media, I'll hold you till afterwards.
I don't, my
No,
question.
I said from the media afterwards.
Okay.
Members of the chamber, if there's one more question, we can get it in. Otherwise, I do want to thank the governor for being so engaging, and you have so much to talk about, and I think the community is reacting so well. We'd love to have you back again, so you have an open invitation to join us. And I also want to announce for public relations purposes, the state of our county will be presented here on March the 28th at noontime from our county commissioners. So let's again thank the governor for coming.
I'd also like to thank the governor for coming. I think it's appropriate on St. Patrick's Day that a gutsy Irishman came to us, that he spoke with tremendous clarity, and I think we have a greater appreciation of the challenges that Pennsylvania is facing, a better understanding of his perspective on how we're going to get through these hard times. And Governor, this is our community leadership. They have led Scranton and northeastern Pennsylvania through hard times in the past. Together with you, we'll get over this dip in the road as well. One final thing, both the governor and his wife are here on St. Patrick's Day, and what I'd like to do is, Scranton is the friendly city, and the Irish welcome is Céad Fáilte, which is 100,000 welcomes. And so I'd like to present him with this painting of our St. Patrick's Day parade, and it's for you and Mrs. Corbett. So thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you very much, we appreciate that. We're going to take this back to Harrisburg and put it up in the residence.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all.
Brian Coyle from Channel 16, WNAP. Over there, talk later.
Well, why am I talking to you?
Well,
What, teasing you?
Yeah.
That was a joke?
one quick
Don't
question
anybody cut that out.
about the folks outside, following, the protesters. How has it been? Have they been following you around? What's the difficulty been for you there?
You know, people have differences of opinion as to how we should solve our economic problems. And I heard somebody say, I got booed. I said, yeah, some. On the parade route. Many more cheers, I would tell frankly. Many more cheers. This job is not one that they're going to be cheering you all the time. If they are, we're giving away the store. We can't give them back. We've given away the store. We've got to get it back.
Thank you.
Governor, what's your reaction to the new F&M polls where people say let's tax shale and let's tax I can't remember what the other one is called.
Smokeless tobacco.
Smokeless tobacco, yeah. And oppose the deep cuts in education, higher education, and public school education.
Well, Boris, I think you know what I said, what the campaign team said the entire time. We didn't campaign based on polls. We're not governing based on polls. That's not what we were elected to do.
Is there any hope for additional state help to prevent or the 50% cuts that came out? Then also you have
Which port authority are you talking about?
LD2.
Well, right now, I don't know of a request if we received one from the government, but I would say I'm just.
Do you have a wider plan for supporting mass transit?
Well, we have our Department of Transportation. Our secretary there is getting his feet on the ground there. We are going to be naming a transportation task force to look at funding. We haven't named that yet. That's probably the next 30 days. And we've just done 2 task forces, commission, whatever you want to call this. Give us some time. It is the transportation, mass transportation funding is all part of the greater budget that we have. A budget that is $4.3 billion in the whole. We've got to look at this holistically. So we're looking at it all together. We're not going to look at it individually at first. This budget gets our spending under control.
You're not looking at it.
Well, I'm waiting to see what comes from this recommendations from this group.
Governor, if you argue with us over against the severance taxes, it might cause the industry to relocate to gas producing states. A lot of people like we are severance tax because there's a reason they go to Texas.
Well, because it's the severance tax that they were talking about. Let's put Texas over here for a moment, okay? The severance tax right now is an additional cost to them shipping it there. If they have cheaper gas, even with a tax on it, cheaper gas in another location, and it's cheaper even with transportation to send that wherever they're sending it, or our gas with a tax that would be, if it makes it more expensive, which one would you choose? Choose the cheaper one. That's what we're in competition with. We're also in competition because there are other regions of the country besides Pennsylvania. There's Arkansas, there's Louisiana, obviously there's Texas, there's Alberta, Canada. And in fact, at some point here in the very near future, I'm hopefully going to have introduced to me what has been told about how Alberta raised the tax and the industry left. And now Alberta's reducing the tax. Don't hold me to that, okay? That's been told to me. I don't have it. Maybe you can go research it. But that's what I do. That's my fear. I want it. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Maybe a seedling in the ground. You pinch the top of the seedling off, you pinch it back down to the ground to make it grow back. I'm not sure. But you understand, it's important to get this industry rooted in Pennsylvania. And it's so rural. Yes, the gas is here. But two things I said, capital and equipment. Look at what's happening off the coast. And listen to the people down there who, when the BP spill happened, they started, the president closed down the drilling, and they moved the equipment. The equipment moved to the other side of the world. It's a long time for that equipment.
In your budget, you talked about sacrifice. There are a lot of people who think that you didn't ask business and big corporations to sacrifice. I was wondering if you could comment on that.
So you think, well, first off, businesses and corporations have been sacrificed. Their businesses are so far down, they haven't been able to employ people. Isn't that a case for us? I'm not sure what you mean by them sacrificing. Does that mean more taxes? You know where I am with more taxes. More taxes is like taking a shovel to the hole you're already in and say, I'm going to dig my way out of this by going deeper.
But you have, cuts in education, you have, cuts are. Those people are giving up things. What are corporations giving up?
Corporations have to close jobs. What we've reduced is, go back to some of the wins that are out there. We have many corporations that come to us. They're always asking for more money. We're going to look at those very carefully. We have to reduce the spending there. We have to let the free enterprise system.
Can you comment at all on the stadium funding, where that stands?
It's under review. So
Can you?
that's
There's no
part
reason
of,
to believe you won't do it.
well, that's part of the RCAP process. We have a team looking at there's three groups of RCAPs. Those that already had an agreement signed, we're reviewing those. Those that were pre-election, we're working our way through the system. And those that were started post-election and did not have any agreement. And no. And what we're also looking for is there matching money, and is that money committed? Okay? We shouldn't be doing 95% of a project. I think you would agree with me on that.
That's not how RCAP works anyway.
What's that?
That's not how RCAP works anyway.
No, but they always look to see what is there other money coming in?
Do you want to do it? I mean, the stadium?
Boris, I've been so busy with this budget. That's one that I haven't really sat down.
Governor, you talked a bit about leasing as opposed to taxing leasing and you're advocating right now.
No, I mean, what did I say? I don't know, maybe it's 137,000 acres or something, ballpark. That's a lot, it has to be developed. At this point in time, it's bringing a lot of money over. I think we need to continue with that. We're not out there actively looking to lease money more right now. But I'm not going to preclude ourselves. That's money direct to the coffers of Pennsylvania.
Governor, just one real fast. Senator Zogby's for the appropriations committee spoke a bit about funding for higher ed, specifically about his concern that the education is like working on Mr. Standing here yesterday, the president said that the administration is not taking the composition students that are going to take more jobs and take longer to get through the system. I'm curious if you just elucidate on your thinking there, because it's kind of weird to take the flight to the students.
I'm not taking the fight to the students whatsoever. It's Mr. Spanier that's taking the fight to the students. He's the one that, when hearing the budget, immediately said, we're going to put this on the backs of the students. Where he's been putting it the entire time. Let's go back to the numbers, facts. $3.5 billion over 10 years they received from the state. The same period of time, when they got the money they wanted, they increased tuition by 110%. Who's putting it on the back of the students? Okay, that's number one. Number two, my understanding, that university, not satellites, the graduation rate, 4-year graduation rate is 60%. That's not great for me. That 5th year is on the student. The 6th year is on the student. The parent, the student, loans are additional money that are being spent. I would think, I come from a generation we mostly got through in 4 years. Okay, I understand it's somewhat different. My son was a 5-year, but his course was a 5-year course. It was everything. My daughter was 4 years. When you add additional years, you're adding costs. I think everybody agrees with that. But I have to go back and say, $3.5 billion and 110% increase at the same time. And you're blaming me for putting on the backs of the students?
Is it flood low in your estimation of the extension in graduation? Is that
I don't.
on the back
I think
of
we
the
need to
college, on the
find
back
out.
of the kid?
Well, I think we have to find out. I think it might be a combination. I can't tell you what ratio. I haven't done a study, but I'm looking at numbers. How long did it take you to go through college?
How long, what?
Take you to go through college?
Through college?
Yeah.
2 years.
4. You did 4 years and 2 years?
No, just 2 years.
Okay.
But no,
Tyler did 4 years at Penn State and 3.5. Okay. Now, if you want to stay and go to college, and party. I mean, a good friend of mine, her daughter did 4.5 years. The last semester was 2 courses. Did she have a good time? Yeah, about okay.
Thank you.
You got your things.